Grab your pen, grab your paper. We're about to go in, family. Grand Rising. Second part, Machiavelli.
Or how about this? How about you communicating with the only God there is? And that is the one in you. See, everybody want to run from that one. How do you think the larvae gets the butterfly dreams? If the butterfly isn't thinking of the larvae as well. Pink pineapple wine, y'all. Coming to a bottle near you. Blitch's Brew.
Peace and blessings, family. How y'all doing? I know yesterday I rated for people to get into the chat. I'm not doing that today. We are going to go straight into chapter 5. How cities and provinces which before their acquisition had lived under their own laws and are to be governed. We again are reading The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, the Dover Thrift Edition, 1992. When a newly acquired state has been accustomed, as I have said, to living under its own laws and in freedom, there are 3 methods whereby it may be held. First is to destroy it. The second, to go and reside there in person. The third, to suffer it to live on under its own laws, subjugating it to a tribute and entrusting its government to a few of the inhabitants who will keep the rest of your friends. Such a government, since it is the creature of a new prince, will see that it cannot stand without his protection and support, and must therefore do all it can to maintain him. And a city accustomed to live in freedom, if it is to be preserved at all, is more easily controlled through its own citizens than any other way. We have examples of all these methods in the histories of the Spartans and the Romans. The Spartans held Athens and Thebes by creating obligatories in their cities, yet lost them in the end. The Romans, to retain Capua, Carthage, and Numidia, destroyed them and never lost them. On the other hand, when they thought to hold Greece as the Spartans had held it, leaving it its freedom and allowing it to be governed by its own laws, they failed and had to destroy many cities of that province before they could secure it. For in truth, there is no sure way of holding other than by destroying. And whoever becomes master of a city accustomed to living in freedom and does not destroy it may reckon on being destroyed by it. For if it should rebel, it can always screen itself under the name of liberty and its ancient laws, which no length of time nor any benefit conferred will ever cause it to forget. And do what you will, and take what care you may, unless the inhabitants be scattered and dispersed, this name and the old order of things will never cease to be remembered, but will at once be turned against you whenever misfortune overtakes you, as when Pisa rose against the Florentines after 100 years of servitude. Let's break this down to what has happened to us in the Black community. Let's even start with the fact of us being called Black, because Black is a term that in history, especially in dealing with the European nations, that they gave to all indigenous peoples to the lands that they conquered. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that they didn't bring Africans to America, because surely some Africans did make it to the Americas, but surely even my family still have some of the paperwork where we went from Blackfoot and Chickasaw to Negro. Because, of course, if you're called Negro, which is a color, not a tribe name, it is a color that cannot be traced to any land, tribe, or person, because colors don't allow you to do that. We were stripped of our land because we were stripped of our names. And of course, if you are going to hold a territory, according to chapter 5 of the Prince, which is a principal book of war, the first, let's write this in the chat, y'all, because I need y'all to understand this. I have said to live under its own law and freedom. There are 3 methods whereby it can be held. Can y'all type in for me? 1, to destroy it. Because let's be honest. The American Indian in the during colonial times is not the American Indian that you see right now. Their history proves that. Not ours. Their history proves that. Especially the American indigenous of the South. But I find it very funny that the Indians of the North, the ones up in Canada, love to speak on the condition of the indigenous peoples of the South. You can't. And how dare you try? Number 2, to go and reside there in person. Number two, to reside. That means that the ruler has to come live there. Or, what did we learn about yesterday? Because living there also includes colonies. See, we think that going to live there actually means that the king has to go there or the prince has to go there and live. No, we were given a caveat yesterday, and the caveat was colonies. Are y'all with me? Can you see that? And let us also remember that the colonies are cheaper for the prince to have there than men at arms. Again, this is how the colonies took America from its prince, because those redcoats were really, it cost the princedom a lot to wage war over here on this land. Cost him so much, it cost him the whole colonies. Y'all with me? And please remember, leave your feelings outside this door, because war has nothing to do with your feelings. Conquest don't give not a frickety frack about how you feel. And it's usually when you get sad and depressed, they've already won. No, we're supposed to get curious. We're supposed to get ingenious. We're supposed to get intuitive. We're supposed to get enlightenment. We are supposed to understand our enemy from a non-emotional standpoint, so your mind is not clouded when it comes to what you have to do during war. Number three, suffer it to live under its own laws, subjecting it to a tribute, and entrusting its government to a few inhabitants. You can say taxes and government. And now you know why America is not the free land that it's supposed to be. Because you are taxed and governed by a state that isn't even a part of the United States of the Americas, because it is called the District of Columbia. We have a Washington state and we have a Washington, D.C., and they will tell you that Washington, D.C. is not a part of the Americas. It's not even, Fee, shut up. It is. There are only 50 states, my love, and there's not one star on the American flag that represents Washington, D.C. Am I right or am I wrong? I know it's only a few people in here, but that's the truth. Peace, Empress. What's up? Just my opinion. Gemini. Sue and crew. What's up? Navi. Y'all please make sure you hit the like button. Let's continue. For in truth, there is no sure way of holding other than by destroying. Let me read that again. For in truth, there is no sure way of holding other than by destroying. And whoever becomes the master of a city accustomed to living in freedom and does not destroy it may reckon on being destroyed by it. For if it should rebel, and it can always screen itself under the name of liberty and its ancient laws, of which, please listen to this, no length of time nor any benefits conferred will ever cause it to forget. If, however, the newly acquired city and province has been accustomed to living under a prince and his line is extinguished, it will be impossible for the citizens used on the one hand to obey and deprived on the other of their old rules, to agree to choose a leader from amongst themselves, and as they know not how to live as freemen, and are therefore slow to take up arms, a stranger may readily gain them over and attach them to his cause. But in republics, there is a strong vitality, a fiercer hatred, and keener thirst for revenge. The memory of their former freedom will not let them rest, so that the safe course is either to destroy them or go and live in them. That's a major chapter, and I really need y'all to re-listen to that when you get a chance. Chapter 6. Of new kingdoms which a prince acquires with his own arms and by his own merit/ability. Let no man marvel, if any, what I am about to say concerning princedoms wholly new, both as regards the prince and the form of government. I cite the highest examples. For since men, for the most part, follow in the footsteps and imitate the actions of others, and yet are unable to adhere exactly to those paths which others have taken, or attain to the virtues of those whom they would resemble. The wise man should always follow the roads that have been trodden by the great, and imitate those who have most excelled, so that if he cannot reach their perfection, he may at least acquire something of its savor. acting in this like a skillful archer who's seeing that the object he would hit is distant, and knowing the range of his bow, takes aim much above the destined mark, not designed that his arrow should strike so high, but that flies high, it may alight at the point intended. I say then that in entirely new princedom, where the prince himself is new, the difficulty of maintaining possession varies with the greater or lesser ability of him who acquires possession. And because the mere fact of a private person rising to be a prince supposes either merit or good fortune, it will be seen that the presence of one or the other of these two conditions lessen, to some extent, many difficulties. And yet, he who less beholden to fortune has often in the end the better success. And it may be for the advantage of a prince that, from his having no other territories, he is obligated to reside in person in the state which he has acquired. Looking first to those who have become princes by their merit and not by their good fortune, I say that the most excellent among them are Moses, Cyrus, Romulus, Tethys, and the alike. I thought perhaps I ought not to name Moses, he being merely an instrument for carrying out divine commands. He is still to be admired for these qualities which made him worthy to converse with God. But if we consider Cyrus and the others who have acquired or founded kingdoms, they will all be seen to be admirable. And if their actions and particular institutions of which they were authorities be studied, they will be found not to differ from those of Moses, instructed though he was by so great a teacher. Moreover, on examining their lives and actions, we shall see that they were debtors to fortune for nothing beyond the opportunity which enabled them to shape things as they pleased, without which the force of their spirit would have been spent in vain. As on the other hand, opportunity would have offered itself in vain, had the capacity for turning it to account been wanting. It was necessary, therefore, that Moses should find the children of Israel in bondage in Egypt. Lie. And I'm sorry, y'all, I had to clear my throat. Lies. And opposed by the Egyptians, lies, in order that they might be disposed to follow him, and so escape from their servitude. It was fortunate for Romulus that he found no home in Alba, but to expose at the time of his birth to the end that he might become king and founder of the city of Rome. It was necessary that Cyrus should be found in Persian discontented with the rules of the Medes, and the Medes invocated and eupheminated from the prolonged peace, nor could Theseus have displayed his great qualities had he not found that the Athenians disunited and despaired. But while it was their opportunity that made these men fortunate, it was their own merit that enabled them to recognize these opportunities and turn them to account, to glory and prosperity for their country. They who came to the princedom, as these did, by various paths acquired with difficulty, but kept with ease. The difficulties which they have in acquiring arise mainly from the new laws and institutions which they are forced to introduce in founding and securing their government. And let it be noted that there is no more delicate matter to take in hand, nor more dangerous to conduct, nor more doubtful in its success than to set up as a leader in the introduction of changes. For he who innovates, will have for his enemies all those who are well off under the existing order of things, and only lukewarm supporters in those who might be better off under the new. This lukewarm temper arises partly from the fear of adversaries who have the law on their side, and partly from the in the incredulity of humankind, who will never admit the merit of anything new until they have seen it proven by the event. The result, however, is that whenever the enemy of change makes an attack, they do so with all zeal of partyism, while the others defeat themselves so feebly as to endanger both themselves and their cause. But to get a clearer understanding of this part of our subject, we must look whether these innovators can stand alone, or whether they depend for the aid upon others. In other words, whether to carry out their ends, they must resort to entreaty, or can prevail by force. In the former case, they always fare badly and bring nothing to the successful issue. But when they demand upon their own resources, when they depend upon their own resources and can employ force, they seldom fail. Hence, it comes that all armed prophets have been victorious, and all unarmed prophets have been destroyed. Let me read that part again. Hence it comes that all armed prophets have been victorious, and all unarmed prophets have been destroyed. He mentioned Moses, right? I'm going to mention Moses and Jesus. Better yet, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. How about that? Let's mention those three, right? Because, it's said that Moses stole the Ark of the Covenant from Egypt. That's how he got the Red Sea to split, y'all. That's why he was able to throw up that staff and split the Red Sea, because he had stolen the Ark of the Covenant. Now, can you imagine Egypt holding the Ark of the Covenant? You remember, Pharaoh was like, yeah, take you and your people, gone, get on, y'all can go. Pharaoh let them go. And they say Pharaoh's woman turned his heart and made him go after them. What if, and this is just me being me, because y'all know how they lie on black women, right? What if that black woman was the one that discovered that Moses had stolen the Ark of the Covenant and went and told her husband what had happened? And that is the reason him and his army went after Moses. I'm just here for the kicks and giggles. Moses was armed. And this is why Moses's line, per the book, I'm not saying, hence it comes that all armed prophets have been victorious and all unarmed prophets have been destroyed. That's out of the book. Let's talk about Muhammad. Muhammad was backed by his first wife, Khadijah, who was considered the first believer. May peace and blessings be upon him and her. Khadijah was paid. Khadijah had her own construction company, which Prophet Muhammad was employed. Yeah, Khadijah employed her husband. And she married him because he was the most honest of her workers. But it was with her money, her backing, her uncle's might, that Muhammad was able to roll through the Middle East the way that he did. Now, shall we talk about Jesus? Because Muhammad was willing to spill blood. Moses was willing to spill blood. As a matter of fact, Moses was a murderer before he left Egypt. Yes or no? He had already spilled blood. As a matter of fact, his whole creation story, because remember, Moses was supposed to die, and his mom put him in a reed floaty float and sent him down the river. His sister looked after him until she couldn't anymore. And then he was found by a princess of Egypt and taken in. Y'all remember that story? That's Moses' birth story. That's why he's called Moses, because of that water. And prophets, unarmed prophets, have been destroyed. Yeah, Jesus went out on that cross, didn't he? Jesus went off on the cross with his mama, his wife, and his best friend weeping at his feet, trying to get him down before the Sabbath came. But even Jesus understood this. He did not come to change the law. He came to fulfill it. There are a certain amount of prophets that have to be destroyed before this can be turned. It's just a numbers game. It always is, because shit, the universe is nothing but numbers. Yes, pretty, they stole. They sure did. Can y'all understand that, or am I falling off? Because I don't see the chat rolling. So okay, I'm okay. I'm not gonna concern myself. I'm gonna keep reading. For besides what has been said, it should be home in mind that the temper of the multitudes is fickle, and that while it is easy to persuade them of a thing, it is hard to fix them in its persuasion. Therefore, matters should be so ordered that when men no longer believe of their own accord, they may be compelled to believe by force. Moses, Cyrus, Theseus, Romulus could never have made their ordinances be observed for any length of time had they been unarmed. As was the case in our own days with the Fiara, I'm about to butcher this name, Girolamo Savonarola, whose new institutions came to nothing so soon as the multitudes began to waver in their faith, since he had not the means to keep those who had been believers steadfast in their belief, or to make unbelievers believe. Such persons, therefore, have great difficulty in carrying out their designs, but all their difficulties are on the road and may be overcome by courage. Having conquered these and coming to be held in reverence, and having destroyed all who were jealous of their influence, they remain powerful, safe, honored, and prosperous. To the great example cited above, we would add one other, of less note indeed, but assuredly bearing some proportion to them, and which may stand for all others of the like character. I mean, the example of Hiero, the Syracusan. He, for a private station, rose to be prince of Syracuse. And he too was indebted to fortune only for his opportunity. For the Sicarians, being oppressed, chose him to be their captain, which office he so discharged as deservedly to be made their king. For even while a private citizen, his merit was so remarkable that one who wrote of him says he lacked nothing that a king should have save the kingdom. Doing away with the old army, he organized a new, abandoned existing alliances, and assumed new alliances. And with any army and allies of his own, was able on that foundation to build what superstructure he pleased, having trouble enough in acquiring, but none in preserving what he had acquired. I hope y'all are hearing this not only from the princedom's point of view, but from those who are being led and oppressed points of view. Everything that has happened to us and that is still happening to us as, as a people who have been conquered and destroyed and scattered. We are listening to those who did that to us and how they did it. And for those 8 people who are in here, you can also learn how to overcome that BS. This is why I like small classes, y'all. Because y'all get to hear the true stuff. This ain't for everybody. Chapter 7 of new princedoms acquired by the aid of others and by good fortune. They who, for a private station, become prince by mere good fortune, do so with little trouble, but have much trouble in maintaining themselves. They meet with no hindrance on their way, being carried, as it were, on the wings of their destination, on wings to their destination, but all of their difficulties overtake them when they alight. That means when they land. Of this class are those of whom states are conferred either in return for money or through the favor of him who confers them, as it happened to many of the Greek cities of Oenia and Hellespont, to be made princes by Darius, that they might hold these cities for his security and glory. And as happened in the case of those emperors who, from privacy, attained the imperial dignity by corrupting the army, such princes are wholly dependent on the favor and fortune of those who have made them great. Then, which supported none could be less stable or secure, and they lack both the knowledge and the power that would enable them to maintain their position. They lack the knowledge because unless they have great parts and force of character, it is not to be expected that, having always lived in a private station, they should have learned how to command. They lack the power. Since they cannot look for support from the attached and the faithful troops. Moreover, states suddenly acquired, like all else that is produced and that grows up rapidly, can never have such root or hold as that the first storm which strikes them shall not overthrow them. Unless, indeed, as I have said already, they who thus suddenly become princes have a capacity for learning quickly how to defend what fortune has placed in their lap, and can lay these foundations after they rise, which by others are laid before. Of each of these methods of becoming, y'all know what? I know why I'm not in the algorithm. Can y'all hit some ones for me? It's like 8 people in here. My chat isn't moving. And that's probably why people are like, are you live? Yes, I'm live. We got to keep the chat rolling so I can get my booty in the algorithm, y'all. Thank you. Please hit the up likes for me. I know it's only 8 people in here. But if y'all can keep the chat rolling so it's active in here. So thank you. Of each of these methods of becoming a prince, namely by merit and by good fortune, I shall select an instance from a time wherein my own recollection, and shall take the case of Francisco Forza and Caesar Borgia. By suitable measure and singular ability, Francisco Borgia rose from privacy to being Duke of Milan, preserving with little trouble what it cost him infinite effort to gain. On the other hand, Caesar Borgia, vulgarly spoken of as Duke Valentino, obtained his princedom through favorable fortune of his father, and with these lost to it, although so far as in him lay, he used every effort and practiced every expedient that a prudent and able man should, who desires to strike root in a state given to him by the arms and fortunes of another, and that included his father. Can y'all write in Borgia for me? Borgia. 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 Caesar Borgia. That'll let me know exactly where we are. And if y'all don't know who the Borgias are, let's just say they controlled the church at one point, because a Borgia was Pope. And when you see pictures of that era of the Virgin Mary and child, that was one of the female Borgias that was being modeled. But we ain't gonna get into that because that's a whole nother family thing, because there was some alleged incest going on. But we ain't gonna talk about that. Yeah, we ain't gonna talk about that. We're gonna get back to this. We're gonna get back to this because that's yeah. Yeah. These, I think, it not super flush to examine, since I know not what lessons I could teach a new prince more useful than the example of his actions. And if the measures taken by him do not profit him in the end, it was through no fault of his, but from the extraordinary and extreme malignity of fortune. Okay. Fundi, I have a question listening to this. Since Papa Bush, various world leaders have trotted the NWO, New World, or and some of their methods seem to derive from the methods mentioned. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. No, these method, okay, we're not, they don't move away from methods that work. These methods have worked. These methods are still working. These are the methods that are still holding a whole continent of Black people underfoot that can't seem to understand what is going on with them. I'm showing you what is going on with you. This is the frustration of a great many Black folk that have actually read about war, that we can't get to see the other Black people like, you don't even understand what's happening, and they put it on a book. These are the exact same tactics. They have not changed. They have not changed at all. You don't change tactics until the tactic no longer works. And this tactic has worked for our 600 years of being underfoot. 600 years is 7 generations. I am the 7th generation, and I have had enough. Yes, this is the history that, and it was buried on the bookshelf, where the library is. Yes, yes, yes. But, since Black folk don't like cemeteries, we don't like to go into dead things. Yeah, they learned how to name shit, so you stay the fuck out of it. See, while you praising Jesus and God that they gave you, they're praising Niccolo Machiavelli. While you're on your knees with your nose in a book for a God that still hasn't delivered you out of bondage. Right? They're secretly praying to the Black mother and the Black child to keep us stressed out, so they can keep their vampiric idea of snatching not only our energy, but our princedoms as well, while we sit around calling each other kings and queens and everybody snickers. Any other questions? Better yet, did I answer your question? Now, about this NWO, they got to call the numbers down before they can do this. This is why right now we have a whole war taking place, right? Where America couldn't pay us our reparations, refused to pay us reparations, but has given to the Ukraine how many billions of dollars? And you got to understand something, y'all. And I hope if Washington, D.C. is not a part of the United States, why does Washington, D.C. get to distribute the taxes of the United States any way that they see fit without the consent of the American people? A foreign state controls our taxes. And if you have noticed, right, just like the Asians in our community, just like the Middle Eastern people who are in our community that come set up their businesses, when our money goes to them, our money never comes back. When our money goes to the United States of America, our money never comes back. And let me tell y'all, your tax return ain't no damn come up. Consider this. Consider what they take from you over a whole year, right? And they take theirs before you get yours. And you worked for it. You don't get any interest on that money. None. And not only after you pay that tax, because that's like paying to work here, right? Again, indentured servitude. When you go to buy your groceries and your TV, you have to pay taxes on every dollar that you spend. And you never see that money back. Get your receipts for a year and really see how much you pay in taxes. Your jaw will hit the floor, and with that little tax check that we get, right? You gonna look at that. You gonna that when I did this, when I was told to do this, and I was getting money back for 2 kids, right? I didn't even think about the money that I spent regularly and got taxed on it. I didn't even think about that. So when I look at this, when I look at that check that they send you back, per your taxes, just look at it and sigh. That's what you do. See, y'all, when you comment in the chat, people can find us. There are more people that's coming on up in here. No problem, just my opinion. Thank you for coming through. Any more questions? No? Okay. I know there's a lag, so I'm kind of sitting back for a minute, letting people type it out if they have one. No? All right, let's keep going. In his effort to aggrandize the Duke, his son, did you hear that? In efforts to aggrandize the Duke, his son, Alexander VI, which was a pope, had to face many difficulties, both immediate and remote. In the first place, he saw no way to make him lord of any state which was not a state of the church, while if he sought to take for him a state belonging to the church, he knew that the Duke of Milan and the Venetians would withhold their consent. Finazza and Rimini being already under the protection of the latter. Further, he saw that the arms of Italy, and those more especially of which he might have availed himself, were in the hands of men who had reason to fear his aggrandizement. That is, of the Orsini, the Colisani, and their followers. These, therefore, he could not trust, and was consequently necessary that the exciting order of things should be changed, and that the state of Italy thrown into confusion, in order that he might safely make himself master of some part of them. And this became easy for him when he found that the Venetians, moved by other causes, were plotting to bring the French once more into Italy. This design he accordingly did not oppose, but furthered by annulling the first marriage of the French king. I see a question. What can we do to change this reality outside of knowing it? You got to be able to name it before you can overcome it. That's why I read these books to y'all, because in most cases, you're not going to sit and read it yourselves, right? To be in reality is to know. If you don't know, you are what is known as ignorant. Or shall I use an etymology? You are nice. And that is one way that the colonials called us. Nice. Now, let me go over here. Because people think it's really cute to be called nice. And it is not. Nice. Entomology. That's right. Because the word nice has changed. Oh, shit. That making it hard to find now, huh? Here we go. Nice. Late 13th century. Foolish. Ignorant. Frivolous. Foolish. From the Latin nisicus. Ignorant. Unaware. Literally not knowing. Timid, faint-hearted, fussy. Did you know that that's what nice meant? This is why when people call me nice, I get belligerent. I get crazy belligerent. Yeah, I'm going to make you eat that. I'm going to make you eat that word nice. So let's not be nice. Let's be knowing. This is how you change. You know. You study. And after you study, come on, y'all. After we study, what should we do? Y'all type it in the chat so I can get these numbers up. Y'all type it in the chat. After you study, what are you supposed to do with what you have learned? Which is why it is, you don't educate people, you are trying to subject. If the Bible was gonna help us, you better believe the slave master wouldn't have gave it to you. King Louis therefore came into Italy at the instance of the Venetians, and with the concept of Pope Alexander, and with the consent of Pope Alexander. And no sooner was he in Milan than the Pope got troops for him to aid him in his enterprise against Romagna, which province, moved by the reputation of the French arms, at once submitted. After thus obtaining possession of Romagna, and after quelling the Colonnesi, Duke Valentino was desirous to follow up and extend his conquest. Two causes, however, held him back, namely the doubtful fidelity of his own forces and the waywardness of France, for he feared that the Orsini of whose arms he had made use might fail him, and not merely prove a hindrance to further acquisitions, but take from him what he had gained, and that the king might serve him the same term. How little he could count on the Orsini was made plain when, after the capture of Firenze, he turned his arms against Bologna, and saw how reluctant they took part in that enterprise. The king's mind he understood when, after seizing on the dukedom of Urbino, he was about to attack Tuscany, from which design Louis compelled him to deceit. Whereupon the Duke resolved to depend no longer on the arms or fortunes of others. His first step, therefore, was to weaken the factions of the Orsini and the Colonnesi in Rome. Those of their following who were of good birth, he gained over by making them his own gentlemen, assigning them a liberal provision, and conferring upon them commands and appointments suited to their rank, so that in a few months their old partisan attachments died out, and the hope of all rested on the Duke alone. He then awaited on occasion to crush the chief of Orsini, for those of the house of Colina he had already scattered, and a good opportunity presented itself. He turned it to the best account. For when Orsini came at last to see the greatness of the Duke and the church involved in their ruin, they assembled a council at Magione in the Perugian territory, whence resulted the revolt of Urbino. Commentions on Romagna and an infinity of danger to the Duke, all of which he overcame with the help of France. His credit thus restored, the Duke trusted no longer either to France or to any other foreign aid, that he might not have to confront them openly, resorted to stratagem, and was so well able to disable his design that Orsini, through the mention of Signor Palio, whom he failed not to secure by every friendly attention, furnished him with clothes and money and horses, were so won over as to be drawn in their simplicity into the hands of Senegalia. When the leaders were thus disposed of, and their followers made his friends, the Duke had laid significant good fortune of his future power. Since he had held all Romagonia together with the Dukedom of Orbino, and had initiated himself with the entire population of these states, who now began to see that they were well off. And since this part of his conduct merits both attention and imitation, I shall not pass over in silence. After the Duke had taken Romagunia, finding that it had been ruled by feeble lords, who, through more of plundering than correcting their subjects, and gave them more cause of division than union, so that the country was overrun with robbery, tumult, and every kind of outrage, he judged it necessary, with a view to render it peaceful and obedient to his authority, to provide it with good government accordingly. He set over its Musor Ramonio di Rocco the stem and prompt rule, whose being entrusted with the fullest power in every short time, with much credit to himself, restored to the tranquility and order, but afterwards apprehending that which with unlimited authority might become odious. And the Duke decided that it was no longer needed, and established in center of province a civil tribunal with any excellent president, in which every town was represented by its advocate. And knowing that past severities had generated ill feelings against himself, in order to purge the minds of people and gain their goodwill, he sought to show them that any cruelty which had been done had not originated with him, but in the harsh disposition of his ministers, availing himself of the pretext which this afforded. He one morning caused Romario to be beheaded and exposed in the marketplace of Siena, with a block and bloody axe by his side, the barbarity of which spectacle at once astonished and satisfied the populace. Y'all please hit them ones for me so we can get some good stuff on up in here. We get some good stuff. We are an hour in. No problem. Thanks, my aunt, for coming through. Okay, so now we've learned, right? Because, of course, what troops do on the ground to gain a place, right? The leader that sent them always has the opportunity to blame it on the generals. Let's talk about Hitler's Germany. Let's talk about Hitler's Germany, right? Because even though Hitler signed off on the final solution, he was also able to distance himself from the treatment that was being given to POWs in the prison camps. You could easily say, no, that wasn't me. It was them. And now you know why so many people were put on trial during that war. Because, even even the female guards were like, yeah, I'd slap 2-3 of them a day just to make sure they understood they weren't human. The parallel here in America is the cops and CPS and the hospitals all making Black people who are indigenous to this country, making us feel less than human. As a matter of fact, writing into law, y'all don't hear me. Y'all don't hear me out there. Y'all don't hear me. Writing into law that we weren't human. How about that? How about that one? But returning to the point which we deviated, I say that the Duke, finding himself fairly strong and in measure secured against present dangers, being furnished with arms of his own choosing, and having to a great extent got rid of those which, if left near him, might have caused him trouble, had to consider, if he desired to follow up his conquest, how he was to deal with France, since he saw he could expect no further support from King Louis, whose eyes were at least open to his mistakes. He therefore began to look about for new alliances and to waver in his adherence to the French. Then, occupied with their expedition into the kingdom of Naples, such the Spaniards, at the time laying siege to Gaeta. His object being to secure himself against France, and in this he would soon have succeeded with Alexander, thus he would have succeeded had Alexander lived. That means the only reason he did succeed is because the Pope died, which was his central backing power. Of these measures, at the time, I would also like to put out there, since I did speak on Hitler, y'all know Hitler, first of all, the way that Hitler set up Hitler's Germany was based off of Jim Crow South, right? But did y'all know that Hitler told the Southern leaders something about us? Hitler cursed the Southern leaders. and even said that what they were doing to us was freaking extreme. If y'all want to know what Hitler told the Southern leaders, put some hearts in for me. Other than that, we'll keep going. And when Hitler say you extreme, I gotta say, dang. People don't even know Hitler had a black army. They don't even know he had one, sis. They don't even know where they came from. I do. Hitler told the Southern leaders, when God finds out what you have done to his people, you will be utterly destroyed. The ground of the earth and the waters of the sky are not going to remember you. And that came from a man that went into the Congo to test out the concentration camps, because that's where his black army came from. His black army came from the Congo. If this is your first time hearing that, hit a 1. And this is why I was watched very carefully in junior high school, because I wrote a whole paper on why Hitler was one of the greatest men in influential history. My black teachers didn't know what to do with me. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, read the paper. Read the paper. And don't read the paper from your bias. Read the paper for its merit. Because for the time he had to what he acquired, he did it in less time than Alexander the Great. And that is something to be said. If this is your first time hearing that, put in some hearts for me. No, Hitler did not like you, but you are you are necessary to tip the balance. We are the children of God, and whatever side we stand on is the side that wins. Have y'all not noticed it? Have you not noticed? The God that they won't let us call out, the God that they took us from. That's why everybody want us on their side. That's why they want us. We sway the energy. Not only do we sway it, we bring it. We are the conduit. They couldn't do this shit without us. None of it. None of it. But until we understand that, well, no, he was not a fool. But you know what? When good men get hooked on drugs, it tends to sway what their brain was doing. You know what I'm saying? This is why, and I'll say it again, this is why Dr. Huey P. Newton was kidnapped by the FBI and made a heroin addict. And so were a lot of the Black freedom fighters who were male. And they still don't want to talk about it to this day, because I think a lot of them were not only drugged, I truly believe that they were homified. I'm going to go and say it. Because what better way to take the masculinity of a man who's a silverback than the buck breaking? Not only did you buck break him, when you released him, he was a drug addict. And thus the fall. And thus the fall of grace. Of one of our greatest leaders. Or they absorb them. Fee, what do you mean? Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was about to rip the Americas a new one. He had already set the line work for us to have representation at the UN. If we have representation as in the UN, we are considered an independent people being held hostage by a foreign invader. And they knew it. And what did they do? What did they do? They gave our Thurgood Marshall a seat on their Supreme Court. As a minority, he can no longer work for us. And that is where he spent the rest of his life, absorbed by it makes me so mad. Absorbed by the very system that he was fighting against. And to let you know just how much they understood that they were sitting on Thurgood Marshall, who did they put in his place? Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas. They went from having our Uncle Tom to putting a Sambo on the Supreme Court that they could sway in any way, shape, or form they wanted. Although they couldn't do Thurgood like that, but Thurgood was still in a minority when it came to interpreting the law and policy. But again, I don't expect a whole bunch of people to understand this, because this is political science. That's a whole nother beast. Okie dokie. Now, where did I stop? Because I moved my freaking finger. Such was the line he took to meet present exideries. As regard to the future, he had to apprehend that new head of church might not be his friend, and might even seek to deprive him of what Alexander had given, which was his father. This, he thought, to provide against in 4 ways. First, by exterminating all who were of kin to those lords whom he had despoiled of their possessions, that they might not become instruments in the hands of the new pope. Second, by gaining over all Roman nobles, so as to be able, with their help, to put a bridle, as to say, in the Pope's mouth. Third, by bringing the College of Cardinals, so far as he could, under his control. And fourth, by establishing his authority so firmly before his father's death as to be able by himself to withstand the shock of the first onset. Of these measures at the time when Alexander died, he had already effected 3 and had almost carried out the 4th. For the lands whose possessions he had usurped, he had put to death all those whom he could reach, and very few had escaped. He had gained over the Roman nobility and had the majority of the College of Cardinals on his side. As to further acquisitions, his design was to make himself master of Tuscany. He was already in possession of Perugia and Piombino, and had assumed the protectorship of Pisa, on which the city he was about to spring take no heed of France, as indeed he no longer had occasion, since the French had been deprived of the kingdom of Naples by the Spaniards, under circumstances which made it necessary for both nations to buy his friendship. Pisa taken, Lucia and Siena would soon have yielded, partly through the jealousy of Florence, partly through fear, and the possession of the Florentines must then have been desperate. Oh, I'm going to do a whole thing on the movie Swarm. Yes. I watched it again last night. Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. How strong for, oh, yes. Mm-hmm. How strong his foundations were may be seen from this, that Romanga waited for him for more than a month, and that although half dead, he remained in safety of Rome, where though the Bagoloni, the Vitellini, and the Orsini came to attack him, they met with no success. Moreover, since he was able, if not to make whom he liked Pope, at least to prevent the election of any whom he disliked. Had he been in health at the time when Alexander died, all would have been easy for him. But he told me himself on the day on which Julius II was created that he had foreseen and provided for everything else that could have happened on his father's death, but had never anticipated that when his father died, he too should be at death's door. Taking all these actions of the Duke together, I can find no fault with him. Nay, it seems to me reasonable to put him forward, as I have done, as a pattern for all such as rise to power by good fortune and the help of others. For with his great spirit and high aim, he could not act otherwise than he did, and nothing but the shortness of his father's life and his own illness prevented the success of his design. Whoever, therefore, on entering the new princedom, judges it necessary to rid himself of enemies, to conciliate friends, to prevail by force or fraud, to prevail by force or fraud, to prevail by force or fraud, to make himself feared yet not hated by his subjects, respected and obeyed by his soldiers, to crush those who he can or ought to injure him, to induce changes in the old order of things, to be at once severe and affable, magnanimous and liberal, to do away with the mutinous army and create a new one, to maintain relations with kings and princes on such a footing that they must see it for their interest to aid him and dangerous to offend, can find no higher example than that of this prince. The one thing for which he may be blamed was the creation of Pope Julius II, in respect of whom he chose badly, because I have said already, though he could not secure the election he desired, he could have prevented any other. But he ought never to have consented to the creation of any one of those cardinals whom he had injured, or who, on becoming pope, would have reason to fear him. For fear is as dangerous an enemy as resentment. Those whom he had offended were, amongst others, San Pietro di Vincula, Colonoia, San Giorgio, and Asciano. All the rest, excepting D'Ambrosia and the Spanish cardinals, the letter from their excursions and obligations, the former of the power he derived through his relation with the French court, would be assumed that the stop licking. Oh, you eating plastic again. I can't stand this dog. If she's not licking plastic, she's biting wood. I don't get it. Through his relations of the French court, would be assumed that he derived Oh, I'm sorry. Would, on assuming the pontification, have had reason to fear him. The Duke, therefore, ought in the first place to have labored for such creation of a Spanish Pope, failing in which he should have agreed to the election of D'Ambrosia, but never to that of San Pietro and Vinscola. And he deceived himself who believes that with great recent benefit cause old wrongs to be forgotten. The Duke, therefore, erred in the part that he took in his election, and his error was the cause of his ultimate downfall. Okay, like I said, I was going to do these in 2-hour spurts. And if I go into the next chapter, that's definitely going to take us over. So we are going to stop there. Anybody got any questions? Insights? Let me put this up. Oh, nope, sorry. If not, we're going to call it a day. But it should be very interesting to the subjugated to listen to how they got subjugated, because that is surely the key to how they get out. Oh, bad leaders not only hide behind skirts, girl, they hide behind crosses. They hide behind crescent moon and stars. They hide behind rules. They hide behind tradition. Ooh, I love that tradition one. Why haven't you done the Prayer View University? Because I haven't received any donations. I only say that prayer when donations start. That's a donation prayer. That's why it wasn't said, my love. And it won't be said unless I get a donation. Because at this point, I'm feeding you and not being fed. That's not a reason. That is no reason to pray. That's bullshit. You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome. It's what I do. It's what I live for. All right, y'all. I don't see any other questions. And yes, we will be going over Swarm. And there's a reason I want all my Black women to go sit down and watch that movie. I don't care what you think about it, but sit your butt down and watch the movie. Especially watch the first minute. The first 2 minutes. Watch the first 2 minutes of every freaking episode. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. And I will speak with y'all later, because if you can hear, my dog is freaking out and I don't know why. Damn it, Rock. And shall we say the prayer of you, University? And yea, I lay my monies and my intentions upon the waters, and it shall be returned to me 1,000-fold. Thank you, Rod. May it be returned to you 3,000-fold, my love. You ready for it, Empress? Okay. Sit in that hot tub and watch. Sit in that hot tub and watch. Sit there. Sit there and watch. Do your thing. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. Yeah. Go watch Swarm. Go watch it. Please go watch it. Cause yeah, once we're finished, I'm gonna break the prints up a lot because it is a lot to do back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I think I'm gonna give people a minute. I think we will do Swarm. We will do Swarm on maybe Tuesday or sooner, giving people enough time to go watch. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. My cat and my dog doing funny stuff. And she just walked in here with her ears slicked back. So that means she did something. Let me go find out what she didn't do. You know who this is. This is Master Fundi Fee, and we have been reading from the Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli. We did chapters 5 through 7 today. We did 5 through 7 today, which is not bad. We're getting through it. We're getting through it. All right, y'all. Take care of yourself and you will take care of others. Salam, shalom, inhu tepu, namaste. Be good to yourselves and you will be good to others until we go to war. And all that feely shit y'all can keep. Love y'all. Peace.